I'm very honored to be on this panel today with my colleagues. I think part of finding meaningful work is building meaningful relationships at work, and it just makes my life so much fuller to be associated with everyone on this panel. It's just a great journey to work at Experian and have people that you enjoy working with. And so I'll give you just a brief background of my journey to find meaningful work. I started out in the mortgage business and was in the mortgage business for 25 years. And throughout the big disruption in mortgage in 2007, I decided to go into nonprofit work, which I really, really liked. But there were some disruption there too, due to the economy. And so it went through some very unstable times with employment between that mortgage term and then going into nonprofit. And so when the job with Experian came up to use my corporate skills and do community work, it just seemed to be the perfect fit. And so it took me a long time to find the right fit, but I just enjoyed the learning along the way, and am very happy to be here today to talk about this topic. So I'm going to start out with Elizabeth Pianalto. And Elizabeth, can you tell us what the definition for you of meaningful work is?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Carol. So for me, the definition of meaningful work, I think, is knowing that your work that you do really matters. I don't think that you need to work for a visionary company or a visionary boss or have a visionary job title in order to make your work meaningful. To me, it's really more of a mindset. And I believe that with a little bit of creativity, any job, whether you're a teacher, a CEO, a call center agent, you can find meaning within your work. An example that I'm going to use is emails. Everybody has emails, whether you do it for work or personal. And sometimes I think answering emails can seem really trivial. And on some days, I just want to go rogue and delete my entire inbox. But when I tie answering emails into a value that I really care about, like dependability and responsiveness, then suddenly responding to all of those emails carries much more meaning. And then the other thing is that sometimes you just have to be proactive in making sure that your work is meaningful. So doing panels like this, for example, is not in my job description necessarily, but participating in it and knowing that this was coming up at the end of my week really helped infuse a lot of meaning into my work life. So in summary, I really believe that finding meaning in your work is a total mindset, and anybody in any job can find meaning in their work.
That's great. Thank you, Elizabeth. And Elizabeth walks the talk. She does answer all her emails, and it's one of the many, many, many things I love about Elizabeth. Just a little trivia here. We're all in Austin, but because of I'm learning to find a gift in everything. And so I've been going through a program about taking anything that might be negative and somehow turning it into a gift. And so because of the pandemic, and we're all on Zoom and we're all working remotely, well, Elizabeth is in the office today, but we're doing both. But anyway, Elizabeth is joining us from California, Costa Mesa. So it's great to have her on the panel with us from California. I'm going to toss it over to Lisa. And Lisa, how do you set boundaries with colleagues or superiors who expect you to sacrifice work-life balance or prioritize work over life and mental health?
Well, thanks, Carol. I think the first thing that I really do is I think about my day and my calendar, and it's easy for people to encroach on your time or your boundaries if you haven't set them for yourself. And what I do there, and my tip is that I make sure that I block out time in the morning and in the afternoon for my email, my catch-up time. And I try not to have meetings before a certain time of the day, because I like to go do my exercise or reading or catching up on podcasts or different things like that in the morning. And so I really strive for having a block of time on my calendar every single day of the week so that people aren't encroaching on my time. Now, there are times where there could be an emergency coming up or something like that where I need to give back some time. but what I do is then I go back and I look at my calendar and I reblock it some other time of the day. So those are some of the things that I do to really set those boundaries. If you don't have any and your time is just available, you know, at the start of the pandemic, I think everybody was suffering from meeting overload, where people were just putting time on your calendars because we were all working remote. And I think just having that ability to block your day for yourself, for whatever self-care you need, whether it's yoga, meditation, running, exercising, reading, podcasts, whatever it is that it's on your calendar. And you make them non-negotiable. So I think that's the important thing to do there.
That's great. I love that, Lisa. It's really making your calendar work for you. I know we all have to be flexible at times, but it is important to not let your calendar run your life to the point where it takes over your health and mental wellness. So I love that, Lisa. I am going to turn it over to Rasha. And Rasha, does meaningful work mean your job has to be your passion or vice versa?
You know, I think few people get to actually have their work be their passion. Now, for most of us, that's not always the case. With that said, there always need to be aspects of what you define as your passion and bring that to your work. So I'll give you a few examples. Friend of mine, she is a writer. She tried to, you know, write books on her own, self-publish. Unfortunately, she couldn't really make it. Instead, what she did, she ended up joining a publishing organization where she is part of that community. And she's a part of the HR group. So while she's not directly writing, she's still part of that community and feeding that part of her passion. I have another friend of mine. He actually is a fantastic artist, painter. When he was young and he wanted to be a painter, his family were like, what do you like? How are you going to feed yourself being a painter? So instead, he went to business school, got a full-time job in corporate. But then a few years later, he decided, you know what, I'm going to try that. And now, 15 years later, he's a fantastic painter. He's able to make it as a painter, but his gig in corporate actually taught him about business side of managing being a painter. So that really helped him a lot. For me personally, my passion is yoga and meditation. So unless I'm like, I don't know, standing in the corner with a bowl and doing some posture, that's not really going to feed me very much. I love our technology in my organization, and I'm a geek by nature. So I use that part and I spend time with my organization. Then when it's time for me to take time, like Lisa said, for me, that's when I get to practice my passion, but you have to find that balance.
Great. Thank you, Rasha. I too am a fan of yoga. Love yoga. Okay, so Ashley, do you think meaningful work means the same thing for everyone?
No, I don't. I think even, I don't know, like me and my two best friends, we all have like a very different idea of what meaningful work is. One is only happy when she's outside in nature. She's an archaeologist and that's her passion, and she's followed that. And I'm afraid, you know, right now she's up in the mountains in California, and I'm afraid she's going to get eaten by a bear. But you know, she's doing what she loves, and that's great. My other friend is, you know, swimming in student loans, and she is working to pay the bills, and she doesn't care what she's doing as long as she's making enough money to pay for her new home and the student loans and everything. So she's like, I could care less what I'm doing for a living. I just need to make money. And I feel like I've been super lucky to be in a company that's large enough that there's so much going on with the different Experian employee resource groups and, you know, yoga and different activities and things going on, that I've been able to you know, even if it's not something I'm super passionate about, but there's different areas where I can find within work that I've been really happy with, and been able to find something where I found meaning. And in the volunteering groups and things like that at Experian, I've definitely found a lot of meaning and happiness.
Thank you, Ashley. So Ashley, another fun trivia fact, Ashley and I actually met 7.5 years ago when we were both working where Elizabeth is, in that very office you can see back there. And she has truly been a champion for volunteerism since I've met her. So we met out there and then both wound up in Texas. So it was really fun for me to get here first and then have Ashley come, and I got to say, welcome to Texas, which is a really big thing here that I really have appreciated since I've moved here. So back to Elizabeth, how does an individual create steps to support their work-life balance?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to start by answering this question by saying that I have a lot of privilege in that I can pay my bills and live a comfortable life by only working one job that takes about 40 hours of my week. And I also get really good benefits. So, you know, I know that not everybody has access to that privilege. And I have actually had other times in my professional life where I've had to have more than one job. That said, I have never really been a fan of the term work-life balance. I prefer something more like a work-life flow. So bear with me here. And, you know, as a millennial who is single and childless and who pretty recently graduated with my business degree, I noticed that it became sort of an expectation that what I do to make money should be a core part of my identity. And after I graduated with my degree, I really struggled with that because there's so many things that I value: friends, family, health, hobbies, including my job. And so part of finding my work-life flow, so to speak, has been to try to separate my identity from the work that I do. So Carol knows that I say this all the time. One of my life mottos is that I say that I work to live, I don't live to work. And frankly, I have to remind myself of that quite a lot because we just can get so wrapped up in work, especially when we work from home so much of the time. And it really sort of complicates what you think of as a work-life balance. So I just try to remind myself all the time that I am working to live, not living to work, and make sure that I really prop up all of those different parts of my identity and all of those things that that I really value in life.
Thanks, Elizabeth. And I think another part of finding meaningful work is really to continue to learn from each other. We can all learn from each other, no matter what your age is. And I have to say, Elizabeth has taught me a lot about this concept, and it's helped me. I came from years of work where your work was your life, and it was demanding and it expected your all. And to be able to kind of relax that a little bit and realize that if we are, not just living to work, but working to live, it makes your job more enjoyable. So I, again, have just enjoy working with my teammates here and learning from them. Lisa, how do you cope with career changes?
Well, the first thing that I love that whole concept of work-life flow. And so I can tell you from my life experiences, it's I came from a single family home. My mom was raising 4 children. And so I got into that mindset, which is I have to work to provide for my family. And I have been in that kind of that push to keep going and make that happen. So I love that whole concept, Elizabeth, around, okay, once you've got, there's some stability in your life, to be able to take that time for yourself. So my journey has been figuring out how to create that work-life flow for myself and my family. So I just wanted to address that first. But so I think for career changes, I am one, I have made career changes. So, you know, I started my career, I would put myself through school. I thought I was going to be an accountant. Once I got in school, I decided, no way, I don't want to do that. I don't want to look at spreadsheets all day long. So I changed my major in college, and I went into computer science. I went into the IT industry. I decided that I like talking to people, and a lot of engineers kind of are more introspective. And so I found myself, you know, what kind of job where could I do where I use that technology skill, but I get to talk to people. So I moved into consulting and professional services. I did that in the IT space, servers, hardware, all that kind of stuff, all that geeky things like Rasha was saying. And then I moved into other roles. So I have spent my career really looking for things that I really, really enjoy. So when I think about career changes, I think about what aspects of the work are you passionate about, and then look for opportunities to continue that passion. So my advice for career changes is really around being curious. So if you are jumping into a new career or a new job, the first thing is be curious, ask questions, find out about what people do, how they do their job, ask questions, find a buddy, find a mentor, find somebody that you can ask those, what you might think is a dumb question, to somebody that they can, you know, tell you information. And then the other thing that I would say is have a learning plan. So if you're jumping into a new job, a new career, create for yourself a learning plan, which is saying, you know, what do I want to learn from this new role or this new career in my first 30, 60, 90 days? And then just keep checking in to make sure, are you on track for your learning opportunities with the company? And the last thing that I would say is really checking in with your manager. So if you're jumping into a new career, a new job, check in with your manager, understanding what their expectations of you are. How often should you check in? How do you want to communicate? All those types of things to set you up for success for that new career or new job.
Thanks, Lisa. And I'm going to stick with you for a minute here, and I hope you don't mind if we can maybe back up a little. I'm going to throw you a surprise question, just FYI. But what are some interview questions that people can ask to find out what the company culture is like before they actually take that job? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, I'd say the first question that I would ask is, why are you at this company? What keeps you at this company? And so it's kind of that open-ended question to really first get a sense of, why are you here? You know, what is your particular mission for this particular company? And just kind of ask that open-ended question. And then from there, you can go into, as Elizabeth said, you know, or Ashley, we've got so many employee resource groups here at Experian. You can go and do some research. You know, how does that company present themselves in the community? So if community is really important to you, go do a search to see, what does that company say about the community and how they want to make the world a better place, if that's something that's super important to you. And so those would be my pieces of advice, that open-ended question, why are you here?
Thank you, Lisa. And Rasha, I saw you nodding your head, so I would like to call on you to see if you want to expand on that.
Yes, exactly as Lisa said. The thing too that I tend to ask people is, what do you do when you're not here at the office? What else you like to do? How do you guys as a team spend time together? Like, maybe you do happy hours? Do you volunteer together? And sometimes I ask, you know, what is your life work balance? Well, I use the word balance because that's the term that a lot of people use it, but I definitely like Elizabeth's description a lot more. So I think you can find out from the people how they view themselves, how they view the organization, how they fit. And I interviewed some companies where it felt like, yes, they may like me, and yes, I can get that job and I get paid, but I'm not going to be happy. Like, I'm not going to be a good culture fit there.
Great, thank you, Rasha. So Lisa, how do you establish work-life balance at a new job when work from home and as when working from home and as a mother, single mother?
I would say, I mean, first of all, I think the challenge of the work from home is something that we're all dealing with. So, you know, how do we change our work-life balance, our work-life flow when your work is your home? So you're sitting at home and you maybe you have a dedicated space, maybe you don't, maybe you're sitting at your dining room table and things like that. So I think the first thing is when you're working from home is you know, going back to creating those boundaries, which says, look, I'm going to step away from my computer at a particular time of the day. I'm going to go, and I'm terrible at this, but I'm not going to sit in front of my computer with my sandwich and eat lunch at the same time I'm answering all these emails. Like, force myself to get up and get out and do something. And then just, you know, try to, wherever your space is around, if you have your computer at home, is shut the laptop, walk away from whatever is your space for doing work, so that you have that boundary that says, now I'm no longer in work mode, I'm in home mode. I think for people that are that have a family, maybe they're a single mom or they have family, I'm probably people, my son's older, so this doesn't happen anymore. But when I used to work at home when he was much smaller, you know, I'd get the kid at the door, you know, pressing his hands up against the window, mom, mom, mom. So I would have, you know, a sign that says, mom's at work, you know, wait until later, something to that effect, to try to help with that. But also that I have dogs, you know, the dogs come in, the mower is here, whatever, there's chaos. And I think the one thing that I would say about what's happened with the pandemic is that people are giving everybody grace for those interruptions that are happening all throughout the day. You know, the doorbell rings, the dogs go crazy, there's something that's interrupting, and I don't know, it's just making us more human.
I would agree. I know in the old days of working remotely, if you had any noise in the background, it was unheard of and something that you couldn't do. And now we're understanding that those things happen and we all are human and have lives. Elizabeth, there is an audience question, so I'm going to toss this one over to you. So it's going to be just part of our Q&A that we're going to launch into, and we'll do some more panel discussion too. But there's some questions here. So Jules says, I'd be interested in knowing what employers really feel about taking time during break times and use them to either get a workout or run errands during the day.
Yeah, so I do this all the time, and that is part of finding my work-life flow, right? So especially in the beginning of the pandemic, I was really, really anxious, just as everybody else was. And so I would do my grocery shopping in the morning before work, and Trader Joe's didn't open for everybody until 9 a.m. They had like the early senior hour at 8. So, you know, there were some days where I had to do my grocery shopping at the start of the workday. And, you know, I, of course, so Carol's my manager, for anybody who didn't pick that up. And you know, her and everybody else that I work with were very understanding that, you know, in order for all of us to do our best work, we need to have the feeling of trust from our colleagues and our managers. We need to have that flexibility in order to kind of do something that might be better for our mental health in the long run of the week or the month or the year or something like that. And that, by by taking care of that and by allowing that flexibility and that trust, it helped me to, I think, be a better employee, and probably be more efficient and productive and all of that stuff, all that corporate speak, um, throughout the rest of my workday, even though I was taking some time to, go to Trader Joe's in the morning and stock up on 2 weeks worth of groceries. And I think, not every employer is like that. I don't think. And so I think that we're very lucky to work for a company that is so understanding and flexible. And, I think it's difficult, if you're not applying to a new job to be able to just instill that in your work life if you're working for an employer who doesn't feel like, or who you don't feel like would be flexible taking break times or using them to get a workout in or something like that. So I think it's tough if you're not already in that situation. But certainly if you're looking for a new job, I think that that's something that you can talk about in the interview. Not only are you interviewing for the job, but you're interviewing the company that you're going to be working at for the next however many years, or at least for 40 hours a week or whatever it may be. So to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, that's the key. I think in the interview process, those are questions that can be asked, and, really probing as to whether it's a company that is going to allow you to have, and I love, that we're talking about work-life flow, the flow that you need. And if you're in a job where you're not sure, then I think it's asking those questions and being really open and honest with your manager. And if you're a company that doesn't allow for any of that, it's finding ways to somehow work those things into your life. And I know it's not always easy. And so I think an important point is, and we've talked about work-life balance, work-life flow, finding meaningful work, all of that. And that's all really great. But there are times I know when life can be really challenging. So, when we look at that scale or we look at that flow, sometimes that scale just gets knocked over, right? Or that flowing water down the river, runs into a rock and takes you off in a different direction. And at that point, that's when you really need a support system, and you need people that you can talk to, people that you can get advice from, maybe a coach or somebody that can help walk you through those times in life, because no job is perfect and no situation is perfect. I've been in a place in my life where I've had to look for work. It's not easy. And so it's really important to stay connected. I think that's a big piece of this, is staying connected and looking to others, and again, learning from each other. If you have people that in your life that are in similar situations, learning from them and keeping that conversation open as to how it all works. So Ashley, I know we've been remote for a while. When I first started working remote, when I first moved out here to Texas, COVID hadn't happened yet, and it was a relatively new thing, especially for people in my position. And I just felt like I had to be available 24 hours a day. I felt like I had to be online all the time, and I really wore myself out because I needed people to know, or I felt like I needed people to know that I was actually working, because it used to be, you're working from home. And so that has all changed since the pandemic. But at home, I know we've talked about workflow, but do you feel the pressure to be on all the time? Do you feel like, you have that liberty to be a little more flexible with yourself, not only with yourself, but with your manager?
Yes. My manager is amazing. She is a big proponent of the walking conference call thing. She'll go out and do it. She's like, "Can you text me the dial-in? So I'm just gonna take this while on the run." Like, okay, that's how she likes to de-stress. Like yesterday, I turned on season 2 of Tiger King, and worked on a spreadsheet. So I mean, that's just, we all like to de-stress in our own ways. When I first had to start working from home due to COVID, um, this was a junk room and I converted it to an office, and it's become my favorite place to hang out now, where I spend a whole lot of time, I guess. But it is a separate area that I can walk away from if I need to, or I can take my computer with me and go and plant myself in front of the TV if I need to, depending on what's on Netflix. But yeah, I really enjoy having the flexibility. Right now, we are permitted sometimes to go into the office, like Elizabeth is right now. So sometimes I go into the office when I'm like totally craving like interaction with other human beings face to face. That's been an adjustment for me. Over COVID, I think my idea of life balance, flow, work life flow has changed a little bit. And just, yeah, right now, kind of more focusing on at home, feeling just better about the situation, I guess.
Great, thank you. I muted myself for a minute there because I had a little feedback. I was hoping it was not me there, but anyway, Rasha, I'm going to ask you the same thing. And I'm a big fan of the conference call on a walk, if you can do that. If you don't have to be in front of your computer, if there's any work you can do, even sometimes getting out for a walk and just thinking through what your next steps are, what you need to do. I think you can really develop some creative thinking by doing that outside. But Rasha, do you have any other tips of things like taking conference calls while you're walking, or I don't know, walking up and down the stairs at your house to make sure you're out of your chair? What do you do?
That's a really great question, because I think for me, at least, I work better when I move. It's like this have to work with this, and they both, for them to work, there has to be movement. So I tend to pace, even generally before that, even when I was on the office, when I would go into a conference call, I would just be walking back and forth. So now I really appreciate that I can get on, our conference via phone, and I'll just pace. Sometimes I'm walking in the backyard. I think it's really important to honor that space between sitting in front of the screen all the time and then just taking a space back to kind of reset, so even changing scenes. This is my office. I'm in my office right now, but sometimes I take my office outside on the kitchen table. Sometimes it's in my backyard. Sometimes in my front yard. It just changing scenery, I notice, helped me look at things a bit different and just address things a bit different as well.
That's great. Thank you. Well, I'm going to throw a whole new twist here, and I'm going to look to my colleague Preenan, who has been monitoring the chat for us, and he will let us know if there are any additional questions. But Preenan, I would love to talk to you about your work-life balance, and I know you have a new baby, and we had the absolute honor and privilege of seeing your baby a while back sleeping on your shoulder while we were having a meeting. It was just the best thing of my day to see that. So Preenan, give us your thoughts on being a new dad and working.
Yeah, thanks, Carol, for that question. So I think the first thing that comes to mind is just being able to empathize with other parents, moms and dads. Like the whole shift to working from home during the pandemic was a shock for everyone, I felt like, and especially the parents who had to deal with also being, new homeschool teachers now and all of those additional elements, which I personally didn't have to experience, but it definitely, having the baby helped me empathize with that. I didn't have to teach anything, but I definitely had to change a lot of dirty diapers, which I'm fine with. And then the other thing kind of that it helped with was I had a new sense of purpose with the baby. So that kind of ties back to the discussion about having passion in your work. And I think it helped me find different areas at work that I was passionate about. It may not be, maybe not my day-to-day tasks, but definitely gave more meaning to the work I was doing because I had, a baby to take care of and all that. So that's kind of what I took from that experience.
I love that. And, it goes back to sometimes our job isn't really our passion or our purpose, but it's the other parts of our lives that, we truly find meaning in, that somehow, we bring that to work with us. And I think, and that just rubs off on other employees, right? Because we see your joy with your child, and just it's an honor to work. I get to work with Prenon a lot, so it's really great to be with him during the day.
Thinking more about that question from Jules that I answered, and we're at this interesting point in work right now where employees actually, there's a lot of employee power, and we're seeing people quit their jobs all over the place, right? And there are a lot of available jobs, not necessarily things that people are jumping at to take, but I wanted to add that, and that, there's a lot of employee power right now, and to empower yourself with that knowledge, and know that, if you need to go for an afternoon walk, or get an afternoon workout in, or run an errand during the day, that you should feel empowered to talk to your manager about that. And even if it seems like the answer might be no, because right now employees really truly do have a lot of power in the workplace.
Yeah, that's true. And again, the communication is the key. And you can open up a lot with just some dialogue. I know, my own daughter this week called me, and she's in a sales type position, so she drives around a lot. But when you're in a sales position, often your time is monitored, and you have to show where you've been and what you were doing. And so when the holidays have come along, a lot of people are slowing down or not doing orders. And she said, a lot of my clients aren't even in the office getting ready for Thanksgiving next week. And she said, I didn't know what to do, because she's relatively new on this job, and was a little worried that, her boss might think that she was just out goofing around. And so she had just a regular meeting with them when she was at their home base. And after the meeting, he sent her a message that said, "We just want you to know you are doing a fantastic job, and we really appreciate everything you do." So while she had this, going on in her head that maybe things weren't going well, having that open dialogue with her employer really opened up, the conversation, and for him to know that she probably needed a little validation, and to make sure that she was doing a great job. So you never know until you talk about it or until you ask. So great advice, Elizabeth. And I would agree, we're seeing the great resignation everywhere. I don't know exactly, I'm not on the other side of this, but Lori, do you mind if I throw a question out there to you? Are you seeing that there are more job opportunities for Dress for Success clients since this has been going on?
I definitely am. We are really working with some of our corporate partners to try to help connect them with different organizations. Just one example is Capital Metro. They're looking for all kinds of positions, from bus drivers to management positions. And we've been talking to them about how to connect our clients with those types of positions as well. So, that's something that at Dress for Success we're working on, is trying to, really build on those corporate relationships so that we can help our clients, because we just keep hearing about, all the corporate partners we talk to have said, we're seeing we have all these open positions and we don't know how to fill them. And I'm like, we have all these clients and we need to help them find jobs. So it just seems like the perfect fit.
Yeah, that's great. That is really wonderful. Well, Lori, do you have any questions for our panelists that we may not have covered?
I put a couple in the chat, but this has been so helpful. No matter how long you've been in the working world, I think just to hear different perspectives from people on the types of challenges they experience at work, it makes such a huge difference, and it just really validates, some of the things that you're thinking of, like, oh, I should be able to go to take a walk today because, I've already put in 10 hours today. And one of the things I put in the chat, and I apologize if somebody's already answered this, but does anybody have any specific hints for how to cut off at the end of the day and walk away from your office? I will work for a while and then I'll go make dinner and then I'm like, oh, I should check my email. And it's really hard for me to make that disconnect. And I'm wondering if anybody has any advice on how to physically do that.
Well, I don't know. Oh, go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, close your laptop. That's the first thing. Close your
And your
laptop
phone.
and your phone. So, if you turn off, just put your phone. I close the door. I physically close the door to where my workspace is, and I close the laptop and I leave my phone in here. And I won't come back. I'm like, I force myself not to go back and look at it. Like I go do my dinner and all those things. And I may right before bed, see if anything's blowing up, but it literally, and I don't open the laptop to do that. I'll look at the phone. So it's harder to, restart getting back into work. That's what I do.
Yeah, I had, my phone plan a while back had an offer for 2 for the price of 1. So here's how I handle it. I have 2 phones, and when I'm done working, this phone goes away, and it goes away for the whole weekend or the evening or whatever. But also, if you do have work email on your phone, you can turn off your notifications. I personally cannot stand to see the little number by the phone part or the email. It drives me crazy. So just turn off those notifications. And really, I learned something really new recently. I've been going through a couple really fun personal development programs, and there's, we talk about being engaged at work, and I have learned that I can disconnect from work without being disengaged. And what I mean by that is when I'm at work, I'm there 100% full, just I'll give it everything I have, but I have to disconnect. And so that doesn't mean that I disengage. I'm still a great employee. I still do my best work, but I'm engaged while I'm at work. And then I do that mental switch to disconnect, to have a focus on my family. And that's really important. I know years ago when my kids were still in the home, I was really, I've always had a tendency of working too much. And so my kids would, need me, and I would say, hey, I'm working right now. You're going to have to wait until I'm not working, and we can address that later. And I remember one time my daughter said, when I said, you're going to have to talk to me when I'm not working. And she said, well, when is that? And it just really, it just really cut me to the core. And from that day on, I decided that I had to shut work off and be fully engaged with the people that I was with. And I think it's just so important, not just for your family, but for you, because it can be all encompassing. And I just can't recommend enough doing just some personal development around things that you can control and things that you can't. And so I know when we're talking about finding meaningful work and work-life flow and all of that, but if you're doing all the technical things to shut down your phone, your computer and all that, but your brain is still, in your job, you don't have any flow at all, right? You're just always in your job. And so it takes practice. Well, for me, it took practice to stop myself and just literally, put my hand up and say, stop. I'm not going to think about that now. I'm going to redirect. And so, I stop and I redirect. And sometimes I do that in public when I'm walking through a parking lot and people think I'm crazy, but it's like, I'm not going to keep mulling around and ruminating on work things. And so it's not just the physical, it's also the mental. And I think that's, where we got into the discussion around, taking care of your emotional and mental health as well. And then again, just getting help if you need help. I can't encourage people more. You're not alone. We are all in this together, no matter what kind of job you have. We're all in this pandemic situation, and there's added, stress, and so it's just, again, not isolating. And feeling like you can't talk to people, because we're all similar in a lot of ways, and we all have understanding. So make sure you're staying connected. And so happy that you have Dress for Success and the fabulous staff there to help you through these things as well. We, like I said, are big fans of the organization and just love helping. So Lori, any other questions or thoughts or final words?
So
Well,
Carol, I just want to also add something quickly to you guys' conversation, because I was with 3 girlfriends, co-workers last night, and we all have very different situation. I'm single, I work from home, I only have dogs. 2 of the other girls have family, kids, and different ages of the kids. And exactly as you said, we all going through similar situation of how do you honor yourself? How do you honor your body? How do you honor your mental state, where you're not working all the time? And especially if you are a mom and you have your kids and you're overwhelmed. Or if you are like me, single, and it's so easy for me to spend so much time at work. And next thing I know, when I get up, my back hurts because I've been sitting, my shoulders. So it's creating that boundaries that Lisa mentioned earlier is so important. Set up timer. I set up timer 4 times a day. My alarm goes off for me to go for a walk, for me to go do push-ups, set-ups, walk the dog. Like, I have to do something, because otherwise it's so easy to get sucked in.
Yeah, I would agree.
it's a great idea of setting a timer. I really like that idea. Just to kind of help you get out of the moment of what you're focusing on and just walk away and take a little bit of a break. The other thing I was going to add is I think that the pandemic has kind of made us all realize that it's okay to be human, and that it's okay to, like y'all had talked about before, like to see the dogs in the background, to see a kid come in and ask for something. I mean, we're all human beings and this is our life. And I think that, just being accepting and having grace with each other is so important. And I think that more and more workplaces are offering up those type of environments, and it's not as rigid as it used to be. When I started working 40 whatever years ago. So.
Right. So you all give me grace for the big crooked picture of the back of my wall there. I went to a quiet place in the house and didn't realize that my picture was sideways. So there you go.
Grace, no problem.
I love that word, grace, giving each other grace. Preenon, did we miss any questions in the chat?
I don't see any questions, but I do have a comment on when it comes to what Rasha was saying, the Pomodoro Technique, where I've heard of it before. Where it just involves, similar to what Rasha was saying, setting timers, kind of time boxing what you're doing so that you force yourself to take breaks. So the Pomodoro Technique. Other than that, I don't see any other questions.
Great. Well, do we have any final thoughts from the panel?
Just one thing too that I was surprised coming up yesterday, also from talking with girlfriends in workspace, is the subject of fear, your own personal fear. You have a job and you're scared to leave the job to go somewhere else. What's that new unknown is going to look like? How are they going to treat me? Or going for interview and be like, oh my God, I'm so grateful you're interviewing me. I won't ask for these things. I'm just grateful to have a job. So it's that space of looking at your own fear and looking to honor yourself and saying, no, I'm worthy of this, and no, I need this, and I can do this. It's really, really important.